A pleasant day, everyone. But first, let me introduce myself. I am Kathleen Urbata Camiging, and welcome to this presentation, which is the article number 4, The Practice of Agricultural and Biosystems Engineering. So sit back, relax, and enjoy learning this topic. Article number 4, The Practice of Agricultural and Biosystems Engineering. Section 26, Vested Right Automatic Registration of Practicing Agricultural and Biosystems Engineers. The content that is shown and stated below is all agricultural engineers who are registered under Republic Act number 8559 at the time this act takes effect shall automatically be registered as agricultural and biosystems engineers. It is understandable of what is stated in this section that all agricultural engineers who are registered under the Act or the Republic Act 8559 will be automatically a licensed professional agricultural and biosystems engineer. So the next is the section 27, which is the seal and the use of seal, which has this 4 understatement that is stated in this section. The first statement is each registrant shall, upon registration, obtain a seal of such design as the board may adopt and prescribe. Plans and specification prepared by or under the direct supervision of a registered agricultural and biosystems engineers shall be stamped with said seal during the validity of the professional license. No person shall stamp or seal any document with the seal of a registrant after his or her professional license has expired or lost its validity unless he or she has been reinstated to the practice and or unless his or her license has been renewed. So in this statement, no person shall stamp or seal any document with the seal of the registrant unless his or her license has been renewed. It means that walay officials nor government officials nor any person shall stamp sa registrant license, professional license if it is lost or expired unless it is being renewed kay wala may gamit ang license if it is expired. So kinahanglan pa siya i-renew. Second understatement under section number 27 or also called the seal and the use of seal is no officer or employee of the government, chartered cities, provinces, and municipalities now or hereinafter charged with the enforcement of laws, ordinances, or regulations relating to in the implementations, construction, repair, operation and maintenance, testing and evaluation of agricultural and biosystems buildings, structures, machineries, and equipments, irrigation, soil and water conservation structures, and other agricultural and biosystems engineering facilities shall accept or endorse any plans, designs, specifications, or project studies which have not prepared and submitted full record, nor shall any payment be approved by any such officer by any word. This provision shall be implemented by the Department of Public Works and Highways or the DPWH in local building officials in the issuance of building permits and certificate of occupancy under the National Building Code and certificate by all concerned national government entities and local government units or the LGUs in the procurement and in the discharge of their regularity and auditing functions pertaining to agricultural and biosystems buildings, structures, machineries and equipment, irrigation, soil and water conservation structures, and other agricultural and biosystems engineering facilities or projects. So it is understandable in this understatement under section number 27, which is the seal and the use of seal, is no government officials or employees or the agricultural and biosystems engineer shall accept any plans, shall accept any payments nga ni-endorse sa ilang plans which is not full detailed because kinanglan patang mo dangop or moadto sa mga government offices which is like the PWH, the LGUs, and other offices para ma-accept ang atong plans para diha, for example, in that specific place. Because if naay plans nga gi-endorse, di pa dyan na silang ma-accept because mangayo pa na silang budget sa, for example, sa LGU if maunay kaayuhan ana nga specific place. So the next understatement under section number 27, the seal and the use of seal, is the no agricultural and biosystems engineer shall sign his or her name, affix his or her seal, or use any other method of signature on plans, designs, specifications, or other documents made by or under another agricultural and biosystems engineer's supervision unless the same is made in such a manner. The board shall formulate, adopt, and promulgate all necessary rules and regulations for the effective implementations of these provisions relating to the design of the seal, the signing and sealing of drawings, reports, and other documents by agricultural and biosystems engineers. So the next understatement is the drawings, plans, designs, and specification duly signed, stamped, or sealed as instruments of service are the property of documents of the agricultural and biosystems engineer, whether the projects for which they were made is executed or not. No person without the written consent of the agricultural and biosystems engineer or the author of the said documents shall duplicate or make copies of said documents for the use in their repetition and for the other projects, whether executedly partly or in whole. So the next understatement is all drawings, plans, specifications, and other documents and reports to be used for the design, construction, test and evaluation, research, and extension of agricultural and biosystems buildings, structures, machineries and equipment, irrigation, soil and water conservation structures, and other agricultural and biosystems engineering facilities or projects shall be signed and sealed by the licensed agricultural and biosystems engineers. Violation of any of the foregoing shall be ground for administrative under and or criminal action. The section number 28, or the indication of license number and professional tax receipt number. So the content under this section is the agricultural and biosystems engineer shall be required to indicate his or her professional license number, the duration of its validity, including the professional tax receipt number on the documents he or she signs, uses, or issues in connection with the practice of his or her profession. The next section is the firm's partnership, corporation, cooperatives, associations, and foundations engaged in agricultural and biosystems engineers practice. So under this section is a firm, partnership, corporation, cooperative, association, or foundation may engage in the practice of agricultural and biosystems engineering in the Philippines, provided that it complies with the following requirements. So there are two requirements under this section number 29. One of their compliance or their requirements are the first, the firm, partnership, corporation, cooperative, association, or foundation applies for and is issued a COR by the board and the commission to engage in the practice of agricultural and biosystems engineering in the Philippines, provided that the majority of the partners of the partnership are registered and licensed agricultural and biosystems engineer. Also, provided further that the members of the board of directors and or the members of the corporations or cooperatives shall be also are registered or licensed professional agricultural and biosystems engineers. And the second one or the requirement is the practice of the firm, partnership, corporation, cooperative, association, or foundation in agricultural and biosystems engineering shall be carried out by duly registered and licensed agricultural and biosystems engineers. The next section, or which is the section number 30, the integrations of agricultural and biosystems engineers, which is stated under this section is this profession shall be integrated into one national organization registered with the Securities and the Exchange Commission, which shall be recognized by the board and the commission as the one and only integrated and accredited association of agricultural and biosystems engineers. An agricultural and biosystems engineer duly registered with the board shall be automatically become a member of the integrated and accredited association of agricultural and biosystems engineers and shall receive the privilege and the benefits appertinent thereto upon payment of the required fees. Though the membership is the integrated and accredited association shall not be a bar to membership in other associations on agricultural and biosystems engineers. So the next section is the section number 31, or the foreign reciprocity. No foreign agricultural and biosystems engineer shall be issued a temporary license to practice the agricultural and biosystems engineering profession or consultancy thereof, or be entitled to any of the rights and privileges under this act, unless the country of which he or she is a subject or citizen specifically permits Filipino agricultural and biosystems engineers to practice within its territorial limits on the same basis as the subjects or citizen of such foreign state or country. And the next section is the temporary or special permits for foreign agricultural and biosystems engineers, which has been stated that the practice of foreign agricultural and biosystems engineers in the Philippines shall be limited to natural persons only and shall be governed by the provision of Republic Act number 8981, otherwise known as the PRC Modernization Act of 2000, provided that any foreign national who has gained entry in the Philippines to perform professional services such as an agricultural and biosystems engineer, or render such services or prepare or produce such documents which are within the scope of practice of agricultural and biosystem engineering as set forth in this act, such as but not limited to being a consultant in foreign funded or assisted project of the government, or employed or engaged by Filipino or foreign contractors or private firms, specifically called in his or her country of nationality as agricultural and biosystems engineer, but who does not meet or wish to comply with all the requirements for admission to take the licensure examinations shall, before assuming the duties, function, and responsibilities as agricultural and biosystems engineer or consultant, secure temporary or special permit from the board subject to the approval of the Commission to practice his or her profession in connection with the project of which he or she was commissioned, provided further that the following conditions are satisfied. And these are the following conditions that needs to be satisfied. 1. That he or she is a citizen or subject of the country which specifically permits Filipino professionals to practice their profession within the territorial limits on the same basis as the subject or citizen of such foreign country or state. Second one is that he or she is legally qualified to practice agricultural and biosystems engineering in his or her own country, and that his or her expertise is necessary and advantageous to the Philippines, particularly in the aspects of technology transfer and specialization. And lastly, that he or she shall be required to work with a Filipino counterpart, a natural person who is registered and licensed agricultural and biosystems engineer, and professional services fees and expenses of documentation pertaining to the project shall be proportionately shared by both foreign and Filipino agricultural and biosystems engineers, including liabilities and taxes due to the Philippine government, if any, relative to his or her participation therein, or professional services rendered to the project in accordance with established rules and regulations. The next section is the section 33, positions in government and private firms and establishment with agricultural and biosystems engineering functions. Only registered and licensed agricultural and biosystems engineers with a valid PRC license shall be appointed or designated to all positions in government and private firms and establishments with agricultural and biosystems engineering function and responsibilities. So the following are the positions that is related with the agricultural and biosystems engineering. Number 1. All levels of engineer positions in the agricultural engineering or agriculture and fishery engineering and forest engineering bureau or division or section or unit of the Department of Agriculture or DA, LGUs, and in the Department of Agrarian Reform or the DAR, and the Department of Environment and Natural Resources or the DENR, and other concerned government entities whose duties, functions, and responsibilities constitute to the practice of agricultural and biosystems engineering pursuant to the Section 5 of this Act. Letter B, or the number 2. All levels of instructors, professors, positions in public and private schools, colleges, and universities whose main duties and functions involved in the teaching of agricultural and biosystems engineering subjects for agricultural and biosystems engineering degree, agriculture and agribusiness degree, fisheries degree, and other curriculum or degree. Third one is all levels of assigned research specialist or assistant position in government and private institutions whose main duties and functions involve research and development and training and extension on agricultural and biosystems engineering. And the fourth one is the head or assistant head, director or manager or other executive positions of agricultural and biosystems or agricultural and fisheries engineering or aquaculture engineering or forest engineering group, unit, section, division, bureau, department, center, and branch in all In all national government departments or agencies, government-owned and controlled corporations, LGUs, and colleges and universities, private offices, firms, and establishments. The fifth one is the head or assistant head, director or manager, and other executive positions of a group, unit, section, division, bureau, department, center or branch of any of the specialized areas of agricultural and biosystems engineering in government and private firms, offices, and establishments. The next is all levels of planning officer, project evaluation officer, project development officer, development manager officer, environmental management specialist, and technical audit. Specialist positions in government and private firms and offices that deal with or undertake any of the specialized area of agricultural and biosystems engineering or its main functions and responsibilities which involve of the planning, project, development, evaluation, inspection, monitoring, and technical audit of agricultural and biosystems infrastructure, facilities, machineries, and processes and other agricultural and biosystems engineering facilities. And lastly, all professional and sub-professional positions, either supervisory or non-supervisory, and career executive positions in government, and all other positions in private firms, establishments, and enterprises whose duties, functions, and responsibilities mainly constitute the practice of agriculture and biosystems engineering. Moreover, registered and licensed agricultural and biosystems engineers may also qualify for appointment in all positions in government and private firms and establishments whose duties and functions partly constitute the practice of agricultural and biosystems engineering. These include, among others, provincial or city or municipal engineer, agriculturist, building officer or building official, environmental and natural resources officer, and planning and development officer of the LGUs, subject to the candidate's compliance with the rest of the requirement imposed by the law or issuance creating of the said positions. The next section is the section number 34, or the personnel required. All concerned national government agencies, LGUs, and SUCs implementing, regulating, funding, and undertaking research, development, training and extension, testing, evaluation and inspection, as well as technical audit of irrigation, farm mechanization, post-harvest and agro-processing facilities, agricultural and biosystems infrastructures, farm-to-farm or farm-to-market, roads, agrometeorology, forest mechanization development programs, and environmental protection and conservation programs and projects shall employ the required number of agricultural and biosystems engineers, and for this purpose create various levels of agricultural and biosystems engineers position. Letter B. All agricultural and biosystems engineering facilities or projects supervised and maintained or accredited by the government, such as grain or agro-processing complex, slaughterhouse, communal and national irrigation system, agricultural machinery and equipment service centers, and testing and evaluation centers must have at least one registered and licensed agricultural and biosystems engineer. The next one is firms, companies, partnerships, cooperatives, or associations which are engaged in the installation, fabrication, manufacture, distribution of sale of agricultural and biosystems engineering or machinery and equipment, facilities, and other agricultural and biosystem engineering processes shall hire or engage of service of at least one licensed agricultural and biosystem engineer. The next one is all contractors of irrigation, farm to market, roads, and agricultural and biosystems structures and facilities shall have at least one registered and licensed agricultural and biosystem engineer as part of their sustaining technical employees. And lastly, the following offices and establishments shall also employ or engage the services or of at least one of the required number of registered and licensed agricultural and biosystems engineers. And the under of these following offices and establishments are: number 1, agro-processing establishments such as rice mills, feed mills, sugar mills, coconut oil mills, fiber extraction processing plants, meat processing plants, fish processing plants, poultry and meat processing plants, food processing plants, and agricultural and fishery products storage facilities. The next one is the agro-industrial firms or establishments, corporations, and cooperatives and government entities engaged in agricultural, livestock, poultry and fishery production and processing, the operation and maintenance of plant or forest nurseries and parks, and other agricultural and biosystems engineering endeavors. The next is financing and banking institutions engaged in providing credit and financial assistance on agribusiness which are commercial in such as irrigation, post-harvest facilities, agro-processing and storage, forest products, aquaculture, food and fiber, production facilities and machineries, and lastly, consultancy firms, foundations, non-government organizations, and other organized group engaged in providing agriculture and biosystems engineering services relative to management and consultancy training and extension, research and development, and or the provision of irrigation, post-harvest facilities, agro-processing and storage, forest products, aquaculture, food and fiber production, facilities and machineries, and soil and water conservation, provided that there shall be no understaffing and or overloading of agricultural and biosystems engineers. The ratio of agricultural and biosystems engineers to clientele shall be such as to reasonably effect a sustained quality of agricultural and biosystems engineering services at all times without overworking the agricultural and biosystems engineers. The board shall promulgate guidelines and standards on the required manpower complement of agricultural and biosystems engineers in concerned public and private offices and establishments. The next section is the section number 35, or the National Career Progression and Specialization Program. There shall be an institutionalized National Agricultural and Biosystems Engineering Career Progression and Specialization Progress to be formulated by the Board of Consultations with the AIPO, Civil Service Commission, and concerned government agencies, provided that any agricultural and biosystems engineer before being allowed to work in specialty areas to perform beyond generalist function or have specific specialties must finish the formal education or training towards specialization, passes recognized practice competences, and must be certified by the board and must be a member of a relevant and accredited agricultural and biosystems specialty organization, provided that Further, that agricultural and biosystems engineering specialty organization shall be recognized and certified by the board. And here are the agricultural and biosystems engineering specialization shall include but not limited to the following: agricultural and biosystems power and machinery, irrigation and drainage engineering, soil and water conservation engineering, agricultural and biosystems buildings and structure, agricultural and bioprocess engineering, food engineering, renewable or bioenergy and farm electrification, agricultural and biological waste management, aquaculture, aquacultural engineering, forest engineering, agricultural and biosystems automation and instrumentation, agricultural and bioinformation system, agrometeorology, and agricultural and biological resource conservation and management. So the last section under article number 4 is the section number 36, which is the Code of Technical Standards. The existing Philippine Agricultural Engineering Standards, or the PAES, shall be transformed into a Philippine Agricultural and Biosystem Engineering Standards, or which we call PABES, and shall serve as code of technical standards of all registered and licensed agricultural and biosystems engineers in the practice of their profession. The board, in collaboration with the AIPO of Agricultural and Biosystems Engineers, the DA, the Department of Science and Technology, or the DOST, the DNR, and other concerned government agencies and private organizations shall develop new standards and update the existing standard under the PABES. So that's the content under article number 4, or the practice of agricultural and biosystems engineering. So under this context is the statement, which is so understandable because it is stated there the rules and regulations, the officials or the employees that needs to be on duty, and the standards of the agricultural and biosystems engineering. So that's all for all of my presentation of article number 4, the practice of agricultural and biosystems engineering. Thank you for watching and listening.